actually seeing the film just recently. And when I met David and he presented his story, I was just like really just blown away by the knowledge and what he was bringing in, and this soul journey of this man. It was just like, and actually, first time I met him was at my presentation, and I was so excited when he called a reserve. I never met him before. We were Facebook friends, and I hear his message. I said, "Oh my God, David's going to be here!" And he was like an old family member coming back. I was like so excited that he was going to come and I was going to see him. And so we were talking about that energy yesterday. It's like this brotherly energy. So it's starting to reveal itself in a big way. But enough of my banter. I wanted to actually switch over and talk about this amazing knowledge that David is bringing in for us. And it's really vital dot connecting. And I think if of course, you're going to get to hear his in-depth journey and what some people choose to do in his life to share this information. And now it's time, to share that and to pass it on so we all come to that next level of acknowledgement. Without any further ado, David Alexander. Woo!
I don't want to say a whole lot before you see this, because I think this pretty much says plenty. Except we'll have a Q&A afterwards, so we can plenty of time for people to share what they have to, what's been triggered by this. And so, without any more hubbub, are we done with the pie? I just want to say, if you're here tonight, it's because you're being charged as a messenger. And when this movie is done, you'll understand. And you won't understand. So, let's tell you the story of the, certainly an activation, that was the intention. This is not the final cut. This is just the final burn that I've been able to manage to squeeze out of my machine. So, on the final cut, that part is fixed. So, thank you for and I don't know about you, but I'm feeling like a buzz right now.
Oh yeah.
So, does anybody have any questions right off? Yeah.
Could you tell me, or where can I find them?
Okay. What I'm doing right now is taking orders. You can, and there's a special price for people to do it now. It's only $19.95,
Oh, yeah.
and you'll be able to get ultimately, like when I bring this DVD and upload it to Amazon, you'll be able to get a digital download or a hard copy. So, one more thing before I get too much into the explanation. We're really rookie as a ride.
Singing bowl.
No, everything that's in this it's me. Like all the photographs, all the paintings, all the sound,
wow.
Everything. I did it all, but not without help. The people that I mentioned, one of them is here, in the air back there. The word coincident means that there are coincidences, right? That the universe is, in the ancient time, we say that coincidence is weird, okay? The word weird comes from the old German, which means it's W-Y-R-D, it means weird. Three weird sisters, the three fates, the three Norns, the three graces. It means the triple goddess. So when somebody would say something is weird, it's like you're recognizing the emphasis of the hand of divinity. You can see the universe at work. So when I say coincidence or I say it's weird, I'm saying, praise.
Cosmic.
Synchronistic. So I forgot my spot. Excuse me?
Go on.
Yes.
Well, you're talking about the story that he told.
You were talking about him.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Hawaii.
one of the things I learned in the process of this movie, and I'm really glad to be able to share this with family like this in such an intimate setting. So I'm really grateful for John opening up his temple.
Yeah. Oh.
As one person said, they feel the field of yum as they walk in the door. Let me paraphrase. I didn't know a whole lot about fox medicine until about 4 weeks ago, in the middle of editing this. I've been editing it for the past 4 months, and I finally made space to include those fox pictures in the story. In the original version of this, I just felt that was a personal thing. I wasn't going to put it in there, but now it's in there. And I realized what fox medicine is. That fox medicine has been guiding this whole project from the beginning. And one of the things I can share with you on an intimate level is that fox medicine is one of the portals into the great mystery. In the same way, if you see your hand like this, let's say this is fox medicine, this is dog medicine, this is wolf medicine, this is coyote medicine, right? This is jackal medicine, and they all lead into the great mystery. And so ever since I realized that, and that's why this movie ends with that close-up of the fox, because I spent a lot of time looking into those eyes in the editing in this, and I have it in here, right? So when I look into fox medicine, the eyes of fox medicine, I can see through them into the great mystery in my mind's eye now, And so there are a number of things besides the sound that you hear in the crystal bowl, thanks to where did he go? Ryan's crystal bowls. That's
I knew it was
one of Ryan's crystal bowls. But I was playing it. Yeah, I played it.
There you go. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, the crystal bowl is one of the initiations. One of the last things that you see of the paintings going by. It's the first time this series of paintings have ever been placed one right next to the other. It took years to paint those 5 paintings. They're the 7 harmonic, the 8 harmonic, the 9 harmonic, the 10 harmonic, the 11 harmonic, and the 12 harmonic. And what that means is, on a circle, if you divide that circle by 7, 8, 9, whatever, and then you connect them all. And then, you just do one's gold, one's blue, one's gold, one's blue. You end up with the 7 harmonic, the 8 harmonic, and so forth. And so I arranged them in this right at the end. And I don't know what that's for or whatever, but something said it has to be in there. And something said it's an initiation. So anybody, if you've seen it, you're it. That's why I said at the beginning, you've just gone through something. You've been charged. So, and I don't know, more often than not, I create stuff. I don't know what the full ramifications of these things are. I just, follow whatever the guidance is. And, I feel really blessed to be the messenger. And now, it feels really great to hand it off, if you know what I mean. So now you're the messenger too, and everybody that's seen the trailer, anybody that's connected with this, there's like a tag, you're it, the crystallization, the catalyzation.
The sources of codes.
Exactly. It is the time, and it's already started with you. So congratulations
Thank you for
to
sharing.
yourself. You showed up. Yeah, I'm so grateful to make the delivery. I mean, I think I was saying to Amy yesterday, I think the funniest line in this whole thing is when I go, and 10 years went by. And the second one is, and then 5 years go by. Because, if anybody had told me that this would be my life, I would have laughed in their face. I had, it's just too, who does this happen to? Us.
Us, yeah. Absolutely.
Us. you know, because this is, you know, we're working on, with Steve here, we're working on doing a global premiere, simultaneous premiere of this online. Okay, and then, you know, to create a viral awareness of what, and this, you know, this is just the beginning of, I mean, it was 90 minutes long, and I thank you for sitting through it. I mean, but this is just like the primer. There's so much more information that's connected to this, and I don't know it all. You do.
Yeah.
We all do, and that's what this is, you know, the Emergence project is about. We're it. So.
Well, I think like everyone has a piece of the sacred
Exactly.
knowledge, you know, and you're supposed to remember this, or you know about this, and then.
And we need to share it. That's, you know,
Yeah.
it needs so that it becomes common knowledge again. You know, I
All
mentioned in
in
this.
the different side of the elephant.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
From the beginning, it like brought up, it reconnected encounters and experiences of mine, like my whole life, and I just started remembering things that I'd forgotten, and then things came up, and I started seeing how they tied in together, and then there was my little part that was
Exactly.
the same, like, we're connected. It was like totally.
That's why I feel that, you know, the personal stuff in here, you know, I left it in. I have a version that's 80 minutes. It takes 10 minutes out of all that personal stuff. I left it in for this screening because I feel that it's important for people to realize how important your life, every little bit of your life is. Because we just kind of poo-poo and shove it aside, you know, and then 16 years go by. You know, and then something happens, it's like, oh my goodness, that's related to this thing, that conversation I had, and that piece of paper I picked up, and I remember that book, and you know what I mean? So now would be the time to kind of like...
Start sharing it.
Yeah. You think?
Oh yeah.
All right.
All right.
Does anybody else have any questions?
You spoke of a cave there was actually
Wind cave.
134 miles of
Wind cave. That's important to
What's it
look
called?
it up. Wind cave.
And where is it located?
It's in the Black Hills of South Dakota. It's one of the reasons why the Black Hills is sacred to the Lakota and Dakota and whatnot.
Wow.
And
Can you go there and go inside?
yeah, you can. Yeah, they have
Go 134 miles.
You can go.
Yeah, take
Isn't that where they have a lot of the Blair Witch stories and
I
stuff
don't know
like that?
anything about that.
We're talking real deal here.
No, I'm South Dakota.
It's in South Dakota. It's in the Black Hills. So one last thing here. I mentioned in here when I said that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more information. I mean, there's an expedition that's being planned right now. There's kind of what one of these people referred to as the Magnificent Seven. There are 7 people that are kind of trying to coalesce and go to the first site. And sometime over the next couple of weeks, an archaeologist, an anthropologist, a filmmaker, somebody that's connected to the Esalen Indian tribe.
The big surf site?
Yeah, the big surf site. And then there's, you know, what this has to do with, you know, Canyon de Chelly and Chaco Canyon and, you know, that the mound builders. I mean, it gets deep. Now, when I said earlier that this is the tip of the iceberg, one of the things, and to reference to common knowledge, what was once common knowledge, it may need to be common knowledge again. Whether you're aware of it or not, there is a technology that is working. People from England will know about this. Because England is one of the places where it's really easy to see this technology still working. But it's working all over the world, in this country especially. And there is, I mentioned a book that you can, it's like a $20 book. I think I have a copy over here. And I have copies of my first DVD as well for sale if anybody wants to. I'll pull them out in a few minutes. You can look through that. The book is called Ley Lines and Earth Energy. It's by this brother named David Cowan. And he was a skeptic about dowsing.
I don't know. We have about that instructor.
Well, there you go. He's from Scotland, and he lives in southern Scotland, and he was really skeptical about dowsing, and he starts studying dowsing, and he found out he could do it. One weekend he goes and, there's a lot of standing stones where he lives, and he goes and he douses the lines coming off with this one stone. He's like, oh, that was great. The next weekend he goes to another stone, and the stone is about in here, the wall, and it's laying down. And it's got all these spirals in it, and what he calls cut marks, like divots in it. And he's like, oh, I'll just douse the lines coming off of this in an afternoon. It took him 20 years, because that stone, just by coincidence, happened to be the main circuit stone for all of Scotland and northern England. Okay? Notice what I said, the main circuit stone. That means that this system is like an electrical system. It's like an electrical grid. Okay? And that grid, I'll just tell you straight up, is powered by volcanoes. Ancient, extinct volcanoes. Extinct volcanoes, active volcanoes, they all radiate telluric energy 24 hours a day in 360 degrees. And where they connect, if one is over here and it's radiating 360, one is over here 360, then they're both radiating at least one standing wave between them that we see as a straight leg. It's called a straight leg. That's like the power line, the main power line from a power station. Right?
Volcanoes and probably
Volcanoes.
also the Earth axis, right?
Excuse me?
Would the volcano line, so to speak, be the main nadis, energy canals, but then the Earth axis being the Shushumna, the spine primary energy canal?
You tell me.
Then?
You tell me.
That's what
That's a piece I didn't know anything about. Okay? My point is, I'm not going to get too much further into this. I'm just saying, I brought the book. You're welcome to take a look. One of the key things about this brother's work, after 20 years of walking 80% of the grid that's laid out on that stone, he is an expert, basically. In one of his books, he has a chapter that tells you basically how to create a grid. And that, like I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And believe it or not, this was common knowledge. I'll give you an example. You would think that if you lived in a time where without plumbing, that you would try to put your house as close to the water as you could, right? So you don't want to have to lug water uphill, right? So northern Scotland, stream down the bottom, houses built across the top of the ridge. Why? Well, as it happens, they could go down, they could have built their houses at the bottom of that, but what they did is they put their houses up there to make use of one of these stones, one of these gridded stones, so that the energy would flow through their houses. That was more important than lugging water on a daily basis. Okay? So that says that our ancient ancestors, 4,000 years ago, the people that built Stonehenge, their average life expectancy was 30 years. It was so important to them, on the average person, that they built their houses on the tops of hills rather than make it easy for themselves. Given the numbers of people that there were on the planet at the time, and the numbers of people that are on the planet right now, and what our focus is of our culture, you could tell just how important that was to them. To build their culture around that technology. So I'll leave that there, and lots for you to think about. And like I said, there's more at the door. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about going from the fourth world to the fifth world and what these worlds are?
Okay. Like I said, according to the Hopi, the Nephew, the Great Spirit, has purified the world 3 times previously. The first time by fire, the second time by ice, and the third time by flood. And that each time, those who remember to keep the tops of their heads open to the rest of the universe were told to go to a certain place and do a certain thing in order to survive the purification. The first 2 times, they were told to go into the earth and join the ant people. And the third time, they were directed to go to a mountaintop. They watched the flood waters come and the flood waters recede, and then they built craft and then across the ocean and so forth. Okay? So one of the questions you would ask is, who the heck are the ant people? Right? Well, I have some clues, but I don't have the full answer. I mean, it's a whole other story that for a whole other conversation. That's another story. Yes.
When is going to be the next purification?
I can't say. I can't say. But I will say this. I will say this, that there are more souls incarnate at this moment than there has been in recorded history.
10% of all humans that ever lived, according to our knowledge, are alive today.
Right. 0.7, between 6.7 and 6.8 billion people. Right? Well, who knows? Who knows? But the universe doesn't make any mistakes. Right? And, my feeling is that who's, everybody that's here has a piece. Mm-hmm. Right? Everybody's here for a reason. And, our ancestors were, their job was to transceive the frequencies of fear. And our job is to receive those frequencies of fear that are on the planet and dispel them. And the way that we do that is by dispelling the frequencies of fear within ourselves. That means when, to us on a daily basis, the world seems like it's going to hell in a handbasket, on a personal level. Like I don't have this, I don't have that, what am I going to do, how am I going to feed my whatever. If I can remember my, who I really am and where I really come from in the middle of that, it's easy to do it on a good day when you're feeling great. The challenge is to remember you're infinite and to practice that awareness when you feel afraid. And the only way, when you do that, when any one person does that, the whole species evolves. Mm-hmm. That's the practice of conscious evolution.
And also, in Maya, they would say that we're all connected to the Buddha-Ku, which knows all thoughts. So when we do, ascend from fear or whatnot, then it's also a direct connection to the Buddha-Ku, so it all knows at the same time. So when we say we really do, evolve from that, it really is as a species. It's the way the mind is.
Oh.
Yeah. Faith.
Thank you. So, yeah.
Base.
What?
Base.
Base.
Cloud.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if anybody has any other questions, answers, clues, concepts, suggestions?
I think one more thing to add in regards to the fear and all the hard stuff that I read recently, and it said that we need to think of ourselves as diamonds, and all of the things that cause fear out there and all the things that cause anguish and hurt and whatnot, they're all like stones, and you need a stone to make a really beautiful diamond. So anytime you ever think of that, just think, right, it's a stone, and it's just carving a beautiful diamond, and then it makes you thankful for all of the darkness.
Oh, gratitude. Nobody died in too much gratitude. Yeah.
Clearly you've had a very interesting life and come to a lot of openings and insights, and learn to keep your head open, top of your head especially. I'd like to ask people like you, what are like the three things that say out in what you shared today, whether it be little practices or just awarenesses, or just the three things that you felt you would love everyone to know?
Oh. The sound that you hear when there is no sound is conscious. That every person that you meet, and every moment that you are, you're infinite, immortal, and that the universe loves the bejeebers out of each and every one of us, no matter what we think, say, or do, and that there isn't anything that we could ever think, say, or do that would ever make the universe stop loving us for an instant. But it will allow us, it loves us so much, it will allow us the illusion of separateness. Yeah.
You know, it's quite interesting because, like you said in the movie about and you were just mentioning about the sound of the universe, and that made me reflect back into when I was really young, and I listened to that sound, and I didn't know anything about meditation or any of this. You know, it's just something that I remember like noticing, and then. You know, after when I was 12, I was just meeting with John the other day, and we were discussing this. I had a really intense near-death experience, 3 near-death experiences. One where I actually died, and that kind of opened me up to this whole another level of just opening my mind and self-realization at a young age. And I went through many, many layers, you know, working through and lots of like past life and regression, a lot of intense stuff. That this movie and what your experience has been really I reconnected with tonight. And then in the last 3 weeks, you know, I thought I like got into a place, and I had, to where I was, you know, quite knowledgeable and aware of like my journey and what I'm here to do. And about 3 weeks ago, actually 3 weeks ago tonight, I had just the most like ship rocking, like crazy, just mind melting experience, and just caused me to like just rock my world. And it's funny because like that, of course, sent me into the most deepest, you know, looking at myself, self-examination, and I went through one of the most insane heartaches where I was just like felt like I was dying inside that I'd never experienced before in this life, and then in the last week, I've been progressing, really getting into myself and accepting like that there's something I'm here. I've already known that there's something here that I'm here to share, that reconnects and that connects together to the full picture of the puzzle. But meeting with John yesterday, and then he told me about this, and I was just going to go home and just relax because I had a really intense, very deep self-examining 3 weeks. And then I was at Better Life where I met John just a couple hours ago, and I see Steve, and he's like, hey, come meet over to John's house. David's showing his movie. I'm like, what? And I came here, and I'll tell you, this was like such the tip of the iceberg for me tonight to really I'm like, oh, okay, wow, and I really got it. And just to be that piece of the puzzle that we all are, to share is so important. I guess that's the gist of what I'm saying right now. But thank you so much. I truly appreciate all of you for this.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing this right now, because it gives me an opportunity to give closure. Okay. The brother mentioned 3 weeks, right? Culminating in this evening, right? So, everybody the past 3 weeks been interesting? Right? One of the most interesting 3 weeks of your life, would you say?
Absolutely.
Well, it's just about like in the slingshot, like that one.
Can I give you a little something?
Yes, please.
Okay. You've all probably heard about Mercury retrograde, right?
Yeah.
And Mars.
So, if I may give a little something on that. Mercury went retrograde at 21 degrees Capricorn. Started 3 weeks ago.
That night. Seriously.
As it happens, that's my ascendant. Where it went retrograde was right next to the North Lunar Node. The North Lunar Node represents karmic destiny. Mercury is the messenger. It's also mind and communication style. When Mercury goes retrograde, it's about inner communication. And anything that doesn't serve that, it's all about integrity and communication. That's what Gemini is all about, what it rules. Right? So Mercury goes retrograde. The first part of that retrograde period, when here's the Sun, Mercury's moving backwards towards the Sun, is assessment of what did I do for the past 3 months since Mercury went retrograde 3 months ago. Whoa. Right? Self-examination. Conjuncts the Sun, the energy shifts, and you start to get your marching orders for the next 3 months. Right? But this is one of the most unique Mercury retrograde periods in our lifetime, because Mercury went backwards to 6 degrees Capricorn. Now Capricorn is a sign that has to do, it's ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is about karmic lesson. And Capricorn is about the basic structure of the world. Right? So it goes back to 6 degrees Capricorn. And at 4 degrees Capricorn is Pluto. Conjunction of Mercury and Pluto. The planet that's closest to the Sun and the planet that's furthest from the Sun. Right? Now Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio in the 8th house. And what Pluto is all about is divine communion through sexuality, death, transformation, rebirth, hidden knowledge, shared resources, power, immortality, reveling in the great mystery and sharing out its secrets. Okay? So you have the messenger going in and finally standing still. Now when a planet stands still in the sky, it's at its most potent. Right? Last night, at 8:53, Mercury stood still in the sky at 6 degrees Capricorn, 2 degrees away from Pluto, where it's standing right now, and started to go forward hesitantly. Right? The night before, Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, went retrograde, as it does every year for 5 months.
And Mars is retrograde as well.
Mars is retrograde. It does that once every 2 years. Okay?
Exactly.
And Mars is also going what's called out of bounds. I had a conversation with the archaeologist, Swami Tai, that we've been trying to organize this expedition for 5 years, the other day. And he's the one that told me about this out of bounds thing. I never heard about, Mars out of bounds. And what it means is, remember I was talking about, how 23, 24 degrees above the celestial equator, the sun goes and goes to the solstice. Well, Mars can go just a little higher, right? And that's where it's headed. Right now it's at about 19 degrees north latitude, and it's going to go up to 2350, almost to 24 degrees north latitude, right? During its retrograde period, which peaks in March, and then it starts going direct again in Leo. Right? So saying all that to say, the fact that you all came here tonight to receive, some hidden knowledge, some shared resources, some divine communion, some inner messaging, right? And are being charged as messengers in the great mystery.
Well, tonight made all of those 3 weeks make sense.
Exactly.
Like it literally did. I was like, whoa, okay. Wow.
And it's the new moon.
And top that off with solar eclipse.
I want you, this is another little piece of information that you may need to, in terms of common knowledge. Whenever there were eclipses in the ancient times, people considered them harbingers. Because they knew, for one thing, that when the sun and the moon were conjunct in the same place, conjunct the lunar nodes, there was going to be an eclipse. And when there's an eclipse, there can be an earthquake. Now, you've noticed that in the past week there have been 2 earthquakes. One 6.5 and one 7, right? Now I've been watching this for the past 15 years, and every time there's an eclipse cycle, somewhere on the planet, there's at least 2, if not 3 earthquakes, major earthquakes. Just a little something, just a little something passed around.
Did you say they were bridges?
And a key.
You said the sun and the moon were what, bridges?
Conjunct. Conjunct means that they're in the same place in the sky, and that their energies are one, or they mutually inspire one another.
Amplify each other.
Of course, because they're not the only ones lined up. The reason why they're lined up is because it's the sun, the moon, and the earth, or the sun, the earth, and the moon. It's all three of us lined up. And as if you haven't heard this already, 2012, I said all the planets, the sun, the moon, the earth, and the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Which, by the way, the center of the Milky Way galaxy is approximately 27 degrees Sagittarius unless it's up the zodiac. It's a point of tremendous harmony. It emanates tremendous harmony, and it's conscious from my personal experience, which I can share that story at some time.
We're also about 500,000 years overdue for a polar shift.
It's less than that.
Galactic diaphragm.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you see that, have you seen the Nova magnetic storm? Where they talk about it used to be that the poles shifted every 2,000 years. Yeah, and now it's been 7,000 years since.
It's more than that. Yeah, it's more than that. But you're right. I mean, we're in theory way.
And this is the weakest the magnetic field has been.
The magnetic field is dropping to as weak as it's ever been in our recorded history.
And the Cross of Hinde, or what's his name's movie? Gosh, the Alchemical Secrets, or whatever. He speaks of prophecies having to do with great plate tectonic shifts in alignment with this event occurring, which Einstein also, I think, made assertions to. And said that huge geologic portions of the world could be totally transmuted into either land being now underwater or vice versa.
For they did these samples of in the middle of the oceans, both Atlantic and Pacific. There are these cracks that lava is coming up out of. In other words, new Earth is being made, and there are these creatures, these single-celled creatures that really love living in that environment because it's hot water, and it's way down at the bottom of the ocean. It's a pretty incredible environment, and so they live there. And within every one of these single-celled creatures, there is a little piece of magnetite. And they, as colonies, they align themselves to whatever magnetic north is. So, like coral, they layer themselves, they live and they die, and you get these layers of these colonies. And if you do a core sample down into those colonies, what you see and what we've learned is that they have, realigned themselves 150 times, like clockwork. So this last time, we're overdue.
Well, there's a lot of speculation also that could be because the Earth was tilted off of its axis.
Relative to what?
Relative to where it was before.
Now. How it is now.
Right.
Right. Our little bias. Right. What's normal in the
It's the wobble. No, it's wobble versus having no wobble, is what I'm saying, because it was actually hit by another body or celestial.
It's definitely been hit by, there was definitely a collision between, and what's interesting is the Sumerians have this story of the creation of our solar system as it is right now. And that story was read every spring equinox by the king or the high priest. And we have that story. It's called the Enuma Elish. It's the first two words of that tablet that he would read on the morning of the spring equinox. The beginning of that would be their new year. And it's called the Enuma Elish, and it goes something like those two words translate that in the beginning. That's what Enuma Elish means. In the beginning. Sound familiar to something else? Start like that? Yeah, it's crazy. Any other questions?
Bringing the reference, one of the things that is correlating with something very unusual in these times is that we have to look at the sun. And last year we literally had 300 days, what's called a solar minimum. And what that is, the sun really went into meditation. It had no solar eruptions whatsoever for 300 days. I mean, everyone was very nervous as looking. And when we see the positive effects that happen in our solar system, and how the heliosphere was diminishing because there was no energy of a high level. So what did that allow? our solar system and start to bombard the Earth. It's not very publicly known about all this, but it's all recorded. And since December, we've had 0 solar minimum days. I mean, literally, starting of the year, the sun has been like gangbusters. We had solar flare 1039 that was just sending solar winds here on the planet like crazy. I don't know how many people felt it, but when you go out in the sun, you're literally feeling the tingling and the charging. I can only go out about 30 minutes a day because I was like fully charged, and I come back in. I don't know if you're open to that and really understanding what's going on. But every day we went from one sunspot to another. But what's really unusual is that we had no minimum days so far into this year. It's just been right behind each other. And sunspot 1040 is 10 times larger than the size of 10 Earths right now. It's growing larger and larger. They're really watching that right now. And when we understand what that means, what energy comes through our solar system and bombards the planet, I mean, there's recorded history of 100 years ago when that happened. When it got close to that, it fried telegraph wires. It was that much energy that bombarded the Earth. So when we see that energy and what can come from the sun, we're talking about evolutionary, events that happen. It triggers DNA and all that alignment. So when we start looking at that, so I study the sun every day now. I watch it and just monitor it.
Not to mention that with the electromagnetic field being at its weakest point, it affects us even more.
All connected. When the sun goes into meditation, our magnetosphere on the planet changes and cycles. That's like, but we have to look at everything that's going on right now. And that's what we're doing. We're all connecting the dots in such an amazing way. And the sun.
So one of the things that was given to me to understand is it consider that light is knowledge, and that the biosphere, its job, and everything in the biosphere is the Earth's mechanism for metabolizing light radiation. And we are a function of these bodies, these spacesuits, are a function of this spaceship. Right? But what guides it all is consciousness.
Yes.
I mean, we may have these spacesuits to borrow in order to be able to, be on the spaceship. But, we were here before there were spaceships.
Yes.
And we'll be here long after.
Absolutely.
There is a here to be in, And so it's our job to awaken. And if you're sitting here in this room, you're it.
Talking about spacesuits being the function of the spaceship and the weakening of the the electromagnetic field. I don't know if you heard about that. When the first astronauts went out into space, they realized that the human brain was completely dependent on the electromagnetic field, and they entirely lost their memory. Right? Now, my theory would be that's not just the brain's memory, but it's our entire cellular memory, memory that's based on that. If you translate karma, you can translate karma in one way as just memory.
Where's the study?
You have to look it up. I know.
Okay, right?
No, the one where they lost their memory. I have to read that because it totally tags on to a theory that I have about when the polar field shifts. I believe that all of our belief systems will flip.
They will suddenly be just completely gone. We will not remember. We will not have.
But
what I wanted to say is that's already beginning. And do you feel how much easier it has become over the last years to forget and forgive? And to start really letting go and transmuting karma, and how directly that's related to.
I mean, that's interesting, but I have another theory that actually everyone who's experienced one side of a tree, because everything forms under fractal geometry, right? So basically, if you think of all the...
There will probably be gatherings, and that place will become a pilgrimage, an annual pilgrimage place for people to celebrate the sacred calendar, the solstices and equinoxes and the halfway points between them.
David, is that your head or your heart that feels you shouldn't share the location before?
Both. It's not just my head and heart, it's guidance.
gave you that have some key to it, find it out.
Yes, you know,
Harry gave
mystery,
it.
baby. It's a mystery.
That's the
You know, and
Yeah.
until that,
We got the
until
treasure
I,
map.
I feel that, you know, that was one of the things that, you know, because that place up on top is vulnerable. And there's cattle poop all over. It's like they're eroding the earthworks, and we haven't decoded what that is. I mentioned a little bit of what my personal theory, but I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not a trained professional. But I have a theory that whoever constructed this, they picked that knoll, they built a labyrinth on the top of that. They walked the labyrinth. That's how you charge a labyrinth. That's how you create that water dome, that lime spring. And then they excavated, and they carved the stones in place. And then they planted the shrubbery.
It felt like there was a large labyrinth all around it also.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, you
It's
said on that level.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you look at those photographs from down the hill, and you look up, you can kind of see, and that's what we need, you know, archaeologists to take a look at. But the question, I mean, the big question for me is, and I talked to somebody about, I think John the other day, is if that upper site, if the only reason for that upper site is to make a visual observation of the spring of the eastern horizon to see where the sun is, to make a visual observation, why go to the trouble of charging the stones? And the answer to that lays in the direction of earth energy and the spiritual technology of accessing earth energy that's revealed in that work of David Cowan's Ley Lines in Earth Energy. And that's the information that we all need to be tapping into. You know, that's what the solar winds and all this stuff. It all gets down to that. You know, what we have going for us is consciousness. Okay, it's how we connect to the grid through our thoughts, actions, feelings, and emotions. You know, one of the things that I was getting to understand when I was going through the spiritual acceleration is that thoughts are real things. Thought is energy.
You know, it also occurs to me, and I know this is just another theory, that when we have Santa Ana winds, very high positive ionic charges in the air, people act out very irrationally, kind of crazy, a lot more fighting,
Accidents everywhere.
Yeah.
A couple of days ago.
These areas that you're saying are underground springs where the negative ions come out. I think many of our elders were much more in tune with energetic flow. Ocean communities for eons have been known to be areas where it's much more relaxed. People are more in harmony, as you say. And so charging these areas, or putting their homes in those areas and going there, maybe these were their prayer circles. I mean, early, have you read Philip Gardner's work? The Serpent Grail, or any of the stuff about the serpent cults?
Lawrence Gardner.
Philip Gardner and...
Lawrence Gardner.
And maybe it's two authors. Maybe it's Lawrence Gardner and Philip something. I'll find out. And
it's about the Grail...
the Grail myth, the elixir of life,
and the Starfire ceremony.
And that it's all having to do with these serpent cults. And they tie it cross-continentally, even to places like Ireland where there were no snakes. And then you find the lore like, St. Peter driving all the serpents out, or all the snakes out of it. And it was because these people had this knowledge.
Gotcha.
That's what I said. I meant Patrick.
I guess. It's a Celtic connection.
Right.
And that's the next thing.
But they're all similar. I mean, and they all have similar belief systems. You know, all of the pagan stuff is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You know, and you see even across the different monotheistic religions, you see a lot of the symbolism. Almost, if you look at it, they're derivations. They look very similar but different.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this is where you get everything comes back to one unified body of truth.
It's just us out here. All right, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.